Today, I've got a little confession, and it's all about how I used to view work life balance. I'm sure you've heard this word before, it is a buzzword in the business world. And I, like probably many of you, when I thought about work life balance, I pictured this picture perfect, even scale with work on one side and life on the other, and a really clean cut middle differentiator. And everything was harmonious and equal.
And how did that work out?
Yeah, that's definitely not how my business works, nor do I want it to be that way. I think I've decided. One of the main reasons that I think I started my business or that all of us started our business is like autonomy and flexibility. And when you're trying to achieve balance, you lose the flexibility.
I completely agree. Before we get into it, welcome back to the Deeply Rooted Business Podcast. I'm Rachel, your marketing ecosystems mastermind. I'm here with Jess, our systems strategist, genius, guru, everything AI master over here. And today we're going to be talking about kind of the myth of balance, especially as a business owner. I think that this is, for me personally, I thought I would be able to design my business in a way that in 9 to 5 in my W-2 life in corporate world, I would slam my laptop shut at 5 p.m. and be able to like turn off my brain. And that's just not how it works. Your brain as a business owner is constantly going, and you can't quite do that close the laptop and walk away thing.
Yeah. So today we're going to be talking about work life integration instead and how to build your work schedule or work life around your energy and values and why letting go of like that perfect view of the balanced work life might be the most strategic move you make all year.
Yeah. Yesterday I wore a shirt that said, let go or be dragged. And I probably should have wore it for this because this is the energy of the episode. So let's go ahead and get on into it.
All right. So let's get into first of why the balanced approach to building a business usually doesn't work. So, number one, balance means or would mean that everything would get equal attention and it really ignores the concept of everyday life. And I think
Mhm.
also ignores the different shifts in seasons. I was actually thinking about it this morning about how my work life, my work schedule, the way I even show up at work during the summer looks a lot differently than how I show up when my kids are in school. And that's just because there's different demands that are coming in. Actually, summer, I feel like I'm a lot more less productive. I was just putting ear quotes if y'all are on there because I have a lot more spacious time where during the school year, I usually have like a very solid block between 8 and 2 that I need to get all of my work done. So I can sit down and focus a lot better. And summer is a little more spacious, so it allows more time for exploration. I always feel like I start learning a lot of more new things. I just got done telling Rachel like 80 new things I was learning this week during summer.
Yeah, I think the idea of balance in the traditional sense of that kind of like everything gets equal attention, like for me personally, even time blocking my calendar feels a little too rigid in some areas where, my life and my business completely altered when I had my son. Like I literally is this nap going to be 30 minutes or is this nap going to be an hour? Like, we don't know how much like focus time we actually have. And really making sure that you integrate a system into your business that allows for that flexibility so that you can still be productive, you can still create impact, but also you're not tied to this. If I don't have this hour, everything else falls behind kind of system.
Yeah. So, I mean, if you've been around here a lot, we talk a lot about proactive planning. That's not to be rigid. That's to allow more flexibility because when you're giving yourself that spacious timeline, you can be a little bit more flexible in your schedule. My weekly ritual is I sit down on Monday mornings and I kind of go through all of my tasks for the week and kind of lay out what task I'm going to do each day. And throughout probably a year of doing this consistently, I've realized that there's really like three max things I can get done a day. I've
Yeah.
like a bunch of little tiny tasks, but really trying to give myself like three max. And if my energy is a little more for the day, I can pull it over. This is why I also love Notion because of the flexibility. I just pull it over to, from Wednesday to Tuesday. I've had more energy on Tuesday. If I wake up really low energy on Wednesday, I can push what's not pertinent to Thursday. So it's really finding like those systems that allow for flexibility, making really like strategic trade-offs. So last Friday and Monday, I took off because we went on a little short weekend beach trip. So this weekend, I'll probably work from 6 to 10 in the morning on Saturday and Sunday because that's when my kids are sleeping. So it's like making those little trade-offs, not being like, oh, I need work-life balance. I'm never going to work on a Saturday or a Sunday. Like that's just, I guess that seems more stressful to me than trying to just like be flexible, right? Or like I feel like you talked about like the unconventional hours that you've had now that you're kind of managing your work around your son's schedule.
Something I've had to give myself permission for because it is something that I swore to myself I would never do in my business and do like all of those things. But if I put my son down for the night and I'm sitting there ruminating about all of these things or like these ideas are flowing, like I'm not going to be so rigid to be like, this is personal time. Like, do not even think about work. I'm going to get it out of my system. And most of the time, I'm way more productive in the sense that I can crank out something that's way more impactful because the ideas are flowing in that space. And I can say, okay, this is good enough for the hour that I spent on this. I'm going to close it and then revisit it in my next free hour or whatever. But that's something that I think the rigidity of being like, I'm work life balance, like I can't do that right now. So, yeah.
No, for sure. I was actually thinking too, like how I work during the school year might actually like be more stressful because I'm not like giving myself a break. So I've really been, or like exhausting me more. So what I've been doing recently is waking up, and this morning I woke up, I did like a little bit of work. I wake up really early, guys. So don't be alarmed, but like from 5:30 to like 7:30, I did work. And then I like
I could
stopped
never.
stopped, fixed breakfast, went and watered my garden, walked my dog, and then I came back and sat down and did a little bit more work. And then I stopped and took a lunch break and did a little more work. I feel like I have overall more sustainability when I do like little chunks like that and allow myself to recharge versus like on Tuesdays. I intentionally schedule all my client calls on Tuesdays. So I have like 6 hours of work back to back. And by the end of the day, I'm like completely drained. This integration schedule, and I need to figure out how to make it work during school life, is really like making sure that my energy stays like stable throughout the day.
Yeah, a lot of the work that I've been doing, I've re-evolved my business is really kind of redefining like what integration really means for me and like how am I building a life that my business supports and not building a business that I can fit my life into and really reflecting on that question to help build a solid foundation in a way that can give me better systems and Jess has said this many, many times is like systems are self care in your business and having these things that allow you to build these rituals, build these routines that create this flexibility is really what we're talking about when we mean like integration into your business.
Yeah. And I think another thing is not only like making sure that you have breaks, but one of the things that I've talked about before in the podcast is, and it's probably way, way back in our like first episodes, we talked a lot about like Ayurveda principles and integrating those into how you work. But basically realizing like when does your energy level support the type of work you're doing? So when are you most creative during the day? When are you the most talkative? When are you the most grounded and can really do those like admin tedious tasks? The typical structure in Ayurveda that you can like have like a starting point is 6 to 10 is going to be more grounded time. So that's better for admin work or work that you just need to sit down and get your head down. 10 to 2 is pitta fire time. So I try to do all my sales calls between 10 and 2 because that's when I'm going to be the most animated, the most up. We're recording this podcast right before it turns 2 o'clock. And then from 2 to 6, like obviously, like I think everyone's brain kind of stops to focus around like that 2:30, 3 o'clock mark. But you can
Mm.
be really creative during that time as well and be able to tap into that creative energy. So just kind of realizing, like, I know you don't like the time block, but like giving yourself a general time block of
Yeah.
when things are going to get done really has helped me. And then another thing I just want to mention is making sure that you're protecting your deep work time as well. So particularly if you're someone that takes a lot of client calls, I fully know like how much energy that takes out of me. And so making sure that there's a couple of days during the week where there are no calls scheduled, I can just kind of recharge my energy if I need to.
Yeah, and I also want to point out another area of balance and creating this like integration in your business is also in your offers. So if you have an offer that is emotionally and energetically draining and you overcommit your time and kind of eats away at these windows. So like if you commit to a project that eats away from all of your 10 to 2 like energy bursts, then it's really not sustainable in a way that you can keep booking that offer, but also still be flexible and create balance in your business. And this is really important to think that it may be a profitable offer, but if it's creating that imbalance in your life, and if you're anything like me, where I am prioritizing a life first business, then you really want to audit those areas that are draining energetically the spaces that may be taking up too much time and creating that unbalance.
Yeah. And I mean, I've seen people get really creative with this, like certain people that calls really drain them. So how do you design offers where you're not having to get on a call? Maybe it's, an asynchronous like Slack or Voxer support or something like that. And then I think nothing is ever going to be perfect. I think it's just learning and constantly checking in with like what you can handle. Like we both go through launch seasons, and I know during that time it's head down, pedal to the metal, super focused. But then right now I'm kind of in an off season
Yeah.
where I'm kind of having the chance to like explore. But I think if I was committing to like launch after launch after launch after launch, I would be
Mhm.
like a blob on the floor.
Totally. So let's go into like how we design a true like integration strategy because I do think it's really important. I would identify the very first step in this is to be probably the most important thing. It's practice I just went through with like my business branding messaging, where we really have to understand and clarify what our values are, like what is so important right now. And like this may change, but understanding like what are we protecting so that we know the space to honor, the space that has a little bit more flexibility, and all of those areas. Because I do think that if you skip that step entirely, you can just kind of be operating on somebody else's terms. Like if you download some type of daily planner and you don't really understand the spaces in your business that need the most love and need the most protection versus kind of going into it just being like, yeah, I want to have a morning routine or I want to be off work at 3 p.m. kind of thing. So clarifying values, I would identify as like number one.
I think the key here is what matters most right now. And that's going to change. If you need money right now, there's no harm in head down, pedal to the metal, working a lot more hours to be able to do the marketing that you need to do to get more clients. If you need rest right now, then, it's no harm with taking off a couple of hours early. It's that reflection point that's really the most important. So step number two is mapping out your energetic rhythm. So we just talked about like this. I gave you the Ayurveda framework, but really figuring out like when are you the sharpest? When do you need space? Can you do back to back to back calls? What is your call capacity for the day? I work with a lot of like dietitian clients that they're seeing call. I complain about being on Zoom all day. They literally are on Zoom all day. And one of
Yeah.
the exercises that I do with them, to figure out like what their capacity is, like how many clients can you see a day? How many calls do each client get a month? How much are you charging? And then based on that, like how much money it is. And it's kind of like balancing that all out to get a whole picture of what your actual capacity is at that time.
Yeah, I think this one's the most important. I did this completely opposite. And I think we've talked about this in a recent episode where we were scheduling a lot of things to be done on Fridays. And my brain is so off on Fridays. I'm like, not happening. I'm not my sharpest on a Friday. I'm looking forward to what we're doing for dinner and like, how can I turn my brain off for the weekend? So like reshifting some of those things and understanding that I will be more focused on a Monday versus on a Friday afternoon when I'm ready to just unplug kind of thing. So I think this is really important. The next step is kind of designing all of the tangibles around your values, around what's important, around your energy rhythm, and kind of like plugging and playing based off of those two key components. So, how can your offers respect your energy rhythms and respect what's important right now? So, if you need to be selling, how can you create that space to be cranking out these offers, but also have enough energy blocks to like accomplish those offers in a successful, like proper client experience type way? How do you build your marketing plans around what you're currently focusing on with the current level of energy that you have?
And then the fourth step is to communicate your expectations and your boundaries to, I guess, all of the stakeholders in your business. So, to any collaborative partners you have, any of your clients, make sure that you're communicating up front those when you're available, how long you take to respond to messages, what constitutes an emergency, what does not constitute an emergency. Make sure that all of that is both in your contract, your onboarding guide, and then once you're there, protect
Yeah.
those times. It's not saying we never make any exceptions for our clients, but when we do, it's clearly communicated that we're making an exception for you this time because of this. Or like sometimes when the launch is coming up and we're working to get a lot of things done right before, I know me and my client are both working on the weekend. And I'm saying, it's okay if you can't get this to me. I'm planning on working this Saturday too, as well, just as a one off. So that way they know like it's fine. But, you know,
Yeah.
not all the time, not all the time. And
Yeah, you're like honoring those boundaries that you've put in place because your integration strategy is only going to work if you respect it. If you completely just say, "Oh no, please, I'm available 24/7 or this or that," you might as well have ignored what's important to you right now when you're the sharpest because you're acting out of alignment with that strategy that you've designed to protect you and that balance in business.
all right. So yeah, I mean, this is like anything we talk about is a practice. You're going to get better with it as time goes on. You're going to deal with all the things like guilt for resting, judgment of yourself for not like, did I get enough done this week? One of the reasons why I love using Notion is because I can go back and reflect, like, oh, I did get a lot of stuff done for the week, and then making sure that you do like protect the time to do, an end of the week check-in, a Monday morning check-in, a Sunday morning check-in, whenever your energy's right for there, to really review like what you got done, how you operated, what felt good, what didn't feel good, and what needs to shift going forward.
Yeah, and I think it's important to know that this is not shooting for perfection, right? We are here to kind of just operate in a way that is working towards balance and rhythm, being in super intentional into your business and your life, and that's what's most important. We're not looking for completing 99% of your, daily rituals that we've all set up and everything. It really is just working towards being more intentional and more protective of the things that are most important, which vary per person. So,
All right. So, just a final reminder, you get to build a business that works for you and your life. That's why we all got into this entrepreneurship. And until next week,
we
we
are
rooting
rooting
for
for
you.
you.